So we got a couple of fun ones today coming out of the Labor Day weekend. This is a fun one here. We're going to get a lot of use out of Mike Rappaport today for this segment. Florida may lose $218 million on empty Alligator Alcatraz as judge orders shutdown. Florida could be on the hook for $218 million the state spent to convert a remote training airport in the Everglades into an immigration detention center dubbed Alligator Alcatraz. The center may soon become completely empty as a judge upheld her decision late Wednesday, ordering operations to wind down indefinitely. Shutting down the facility for the time being would cost the state $15 million to $20 million immediately, and it would cost another $15 million to $20 million to reinstall structures if Florida is allowed to reopen it, according to court filings by the state. The Florida Division of Emergency Management will lose most of the value of the $218 million it has invested in making the airport suitable for a detention center, a state official said in court papers. Built in just a few days, the facility consists of chain-link cages surrounding large white tents filled with rows of bunk beds. An Associated Press analysis of publicly available state spending data showed that Florida has signed at least $405 million in vendor contracts to build and operate the facility.
You're such a fantastic moron.
Which officials had initially estimated would cost $450 million a year to run. A previous AP review found that as of late July, the state had already allocated at least $245 million to run the site, which opened July 1st. It's also facing several legal challenges, including the one that U.S. District Judge Kathleen Williams ruled on late Wednesday. She denied requests to pause her order to wind down operations after agreeing last week with environmental groups and the Miccosukee tribe that the state and federal defendants didn't follow federal law requiring an environmental review for the detention center in the middle of sensitive wetlands. The Miami judge said the number of detainees was already dwindling and that the federal government's immigration enforcement goals will not be thwarted by a pause in operations. That's despite Homeland Security lawyers saying the judge's order would disrupt that enforcement. Okay, so they're giving away the game here.
When you fuck a stranger in the ass.
Exactly. So they're really giving away the game here because if you remember, we've covered this extensively, just about every development throughout this. What the government argued in response to the lawsuit, saying that this was in violation of federal environmental regulations, the government actually argued that because this was a state-run operation, it was not subject to federal environmental regulations, which I'm no lawyer. That seems like a stupid argument on its face because I always understood that federal law supersedes state law.
Exactly.
So to me, that wouldn't even be an argument in the first place. But okay, taking that for what it means, here they're arguing the exact opposite of what they argued in court, which is that interference with this state operation would disrupt federal policy. So they're basically nullifying the argument that they made in court. I guess now that the trial's over and they lost, they figure they can say that part out loud in a desperate attempt to try and save some kind of face, maybe recoup some of these expenses, but does not seem to be working. When asked, the Department of Homeland Security wouldn't say how many detainees remained and how many had been moved out since the judge's temporary injunction last week. DHS is complying with this order and moving detainees to other facilities, the department said in Thursday in an emailed statement. That's right. So Dad Swain Sadai says Alligator Alcatraz is closing down after only 2 months. Why? Because it was a stupid idea to open it in the first place. Florida deserves a $218 million loss for opening that mess at all. Yeah, I agree with that. And this video has been making the rounds today with multiple people making this observation about a Japanese high-speed rail line here. Damn, this was cheaper than the now defunct Alligator Alcatraz. That's right. That's right. So this is Japan's new high-speed rail that came with a $70 million price tag.
そう、音が近づいてきた。今見えた。一瞬見えてきた。
You can have that. You can get from New York to Chicago in a couple hours using that kind of high-speed rail, or we can build, half-assed immigrant jails in alligator swamps to torture brown people. This is why the state of the country is a reflection of the priorities of the country. That was $70 million. That was built for a third of the loss that the state is taking on Alligator Alcatraz. So that shows you what our
and
priorities
they made
are.
Godzilla -1 for like $575.
That's right. Think of how many Godzilla -1s we could make for that. So not only does this just show the priorities of the country, but it just also shows the hollowness of all of this deficit hawk talk out of these, sort of hard right conservative politicians who are, so careful about where they spend their money. They have Doge rifle through the treasury to save a nickel here and a dime there. Thought nothing of building this facility, sinking hundreds of millions of state dollars into it, knowing there was a pretty good chance it would get shut down. I mean, they had to know that this would be challenged in court, and they had to know that if they were skirting these environmental regulations, that it was only a matter of time, and probably a very short matter of time, before a judge struck it down and they had to cancel it and empty it out. Did they think about that for a second before committing all of that money that now they're not going to get back? No, because, hey, the Chuds will love this. They'll love, hey, what an idea this is. Let's put the immigrants out near the alligators. That'll be fun. That'll soften the blow of a 12-day war with Iran. That'll soften the blow of letting Epstein walk. Yeah, let's do it. That'll be great. With not a care in the world. Forget about the immigrants. We know they don't care about the immigrants at all. Not a care in the world for the price tag and for the loss that the state is going to incur when the inevitable happens. And thankfully, it happens sooner than later. And Alligator Alcatraz is in the process of emptying out.
Yeah, quite a few things that they're doing that are now getting struck down in court were very obvious to anyone. Like, you didn't have to be a legal professional to know we have a posse comitatus act. You can't just send the military into American cities. And that was breaking today. We just had a court rule that it was illegal sending the troops to Los Angeles. And I would assume that's going to be followed ultimately with a ruling on what they're doing in DC.
And Chicago, they're getting ready for that.
And
now.
Chicago, you cannot, they're talking about doing it in New York too.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot just go ahead with absolutely no review and build a detention center in a swamp. And when you look at the genesis of this and you look at the freaks responsible, you look at putting Ron DeSantis over there and Trump and Benny in the closet pumping it up. The genesis was a back of a napkin conversation. Right. One of these psychopathic assholes called the other and said, hang on. I've got it. Those old runways out in the swamp?
Yeah.
Let's put the immigrants there. You know what we could do? We could make T-shirts.
Right.
We could make hats. They'll love it. And that'll offset the cost. We'll sell the hats. We'll sell the merch. That's how this happened. I think it's very hard for people to imagine that people at this level of authority are this freakish, incompetent, just it's hard for people to imagine losers at this level of government, but that's what these people really are. They thought it was going to be a great way to gin up the Chuds, which is all they used it for, bringing in these influencers to show them. And they didn't think through the consequences at all. And these same people who are running around telling you that the government has to live within its means, holding the country by the ankles and shaking out the loose change. Oh, we can't have these deficits. They just passed a bill that increases the deficits by $5 trillion. They don't care about any of that.
No.
This is what they are throwing you. This is the bread and circuses they're throwing you to distract you from the looting. And the kind of people who watch Benny in the Closet, for whom that appeals, except not the ones who meet him at the glory hole. I mean, the general audience for Benny in the Closet. This is what they're giving you in exchange for the life that they stole from you. These people have spent decades destroying your town, destroying your prospects, destroying your health care. And what they're giving you in exchange is rage bait and a fake sense of belonging to some kind of group that you're never actually going to meet, that you're only going to encounter this way online on your phone. It's a very pale substitute for the life they stole from you. And they have to give you things like this so that you don't come for them.
Yeah, well, what was
All
that?
about you not coming for them.
Yeah, what was that green energy company, Solyndra? Some kind of green energy company that Obama gave $500 million to, and it ended up shuttering or something. And yeah, that was the scandal of the century on Fox News. They got like 6 months of airtime out of that. Here you have the vendor contracts alone were $400 million.
Right.
$400 million for a place that was open for what? 60 days in the end, what, July, August, September, whatever it is. Yeah, about 60 days, about 2 months worth of stuff. What, that wasn't a negligent waste of taxpayer money? Of course it was. Of course it was. And it was completely foreseeable. It's completely foreseeable. So karma caught up with Florida today.
All of this is now today, the bond yields are going through the roof in anticipation that the government might have to pay back everyone who paid those tariffs because they were never legal. It was always obvious they were not legal. If you could just do that, why didn't anyone just do it before?
Right. Yeah. Yep. So we'll see how that goes. That'll be a story worth following up on for sure.
Please clap.